I stood in my childhood living room on Thanksgiving evening, my mother's voice cutting through the murmur of family conversation like a knife. Patricia, my mom, was screaming at me in front of aunts, uncles, and cousins because I'd politely said no to co-signing a $50,000 loan for my younger brother Trevor. She called me selfish, ungrateful, listing every sacrifice she'd ever made. When I tried to explain my own financial struggles, she cut me off with words that would change everything. "You're ungrateful. Get out and never come back." My father Dennis just stood there, silent as always. I walked out with my keys still in hand. The drive back to my apartment felt surreal. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I kept replaying the scene in my head, watching it like a movie I couldn't pause. The look on Aunt Carol's face, the way my cousins had suddenly found their phones fascinating, the silence that followed my mother's ultimatum. But what hurt most was my father's silence. Dennis had just stood there by the fireplace, one hand holding his beer, the other in his pocket. He wouldn't even look at me. 35 years of marriage to Patricia had taught him that silence was survival. I pulled into my apartment complex around 9 that night. My phone had been buzzing nonstop. Text messages from relatives, most of them telling me I should apologize, that I should respect my mother, that family comes first. I turned the phone off and sat in my car in the darkness. Here's what none of them knew, what none of them could possibly understand. For the past 3 years, I'd been paying my parents' mortgage. Every single month, $1,800 came out of my account and went straight to their bank. That's $21,600 a year. Over 3 years, I'd paid $64,800 to keep a roof over their heads. It started during the pandemic. Dad lost his job at the manufacturing plant where he'd worked for 27 years. Mom had been working part-time at a department store, but that dried up too. They were both in their early 60s, and nobody was hiring. Their savings evaporated in about 8 months. I remember the phone call. Dad's voice had been so small, so defeated. "Son, we need help. The bank is threatening foreclosure. We've got maybe 60 days before we lose the house." Mom had gotten on the line too, crying, talking about how humiliating it would be to lose their home, to have the neighbors see them fail. They'd raised me, put me through state college, helped me get my first car. How could I say no? So I'd said yes. Temporary, they promised. Just until they got back on their feet. They'd pay me back every cent. They swore it. That was 3 years ago. They never got back on their feet. Never even looked for work after the first year. And they certainly never paid me back a single dollar. Meanwhile, I was drowning. I had my own student loans, $32,000 still hanging over my head. My rent was $1,300 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment in a decent part of town. Insurance, car payment, groceries, utilities, and that $1,800 every month to my parents. I was a software engineer making $78,000 a year, which sounds like good money until you break it down. After taxes, I was taking home about $51,000. Subtract the $21,600 for my parents' mortgage, and I was living on $29,400 a year. That's $2,450 a month for everything else. I was 38 years old, and I had nothing saved. No emergency fund, no retirement account worth mentioning. Nothing. And Trevor, my 26-year-old brother who'd dropped out of college after 1 semester, who'd burned through 5 different business ideas in the past 4 years, who was currently unemployed and living in Mom and Dad's basement. Trevor, who'd asked me to co-sign a $50,000 loan so he could start a food truck business. A food truck. His latest brilliant plan. I'd said no as politely as I could. I'd explained that co-signing meant if he defaulted, which based on his track record was almost guaranteed, my credit would be destroyed. I'd never be able to buy a house, get a decent car loan, maybe even rent a better apartment. I'd explained I was already stretched thin financially. That's when Mom had exploded. In front of everyone. At Thanksgiving dinner, she'd called me selfish. Said I'd abandoned family values. Said I thought I was better than everyone else because I had a college degree and a corporate job. She'd brought up every time she'd ever helped me as a kid, like I owed her some kind of debt that could never be repaid. When I'd tried to defend myself, tried to explain about the mortgage payments, She'd talked right over me, louder and louder until she was screaming, "You're ungrateful. Get out and never come back." So I had. Now, sitting in my dark apartment, I made a decision. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. There, in my list of recurring transfers, was the automatic payment scheduled to go out in 5 days. The $1,800 that would keep their mortgage current for December. I canceled it. My hand was shaking when I clicked confirm. 3 years of payments. Done. Finished. Over. I picked up my phone and sent a text to both my parents. As requested, I'm out of your lives. That includes financially. Then I blocked both their numbers. I sat there in the silence of my apartment, feeling something I hadn't felt in 3 years. It took me a minute to recognize what it was. Relief. But the relief lasted about 48 hours. That's when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Brenton? It's Aunt Carol, my mother's older sister, the one who'd been sitting at the dinner table, who'd witnessed the whole thing." "Hi, Aunt Carol. I need to talk to you about your parents," she said, and her tone was cold. "I cannot believe you would abandon them like this." "Elderly people, Brenton? Your own mother and father?" I felt my jaw clench. "Aunt Carol, did Mom tell you what happened? She told me you've been living in their house rent-free for years and now you're refusing to contribute anything. She told me you wouldn't even help your own brother get a loan for his business. She's devastated, Brenton. Just devastated." The words hit me like a physical blow. Living in their house? Rent-free? Aunt Carol, I haven't lived with my parents since I was 22. I have my own apartment. I've had it for 8 years. Silence on the other end. "I've been paying their mortgage," I continued, my voice shaking now. $1,800 every month for 3 years. They were about to lose their house. I've paid $64,800 to keep them from being foreclosed on. More silence. "That's not what Patricia told us," Aunt Carol finally said, but her voice had changed. Uncertainty had crept in. "No," I said. "I don't imagine it is." After I hung up with Aunt Carol, I sat there staring at my phone. My mother had been lying to the entire family. For 3 years, she'd been telling them I was the freeloader, the ungrateful son who took and gave nothing back. How many other lies had she told? How many other people believed I was the villain in this story? I needed to know the truth. All of it. I called my younger sister, Madison. She'd moved to Colorado 2 years ago, and we didn't talk as much as we should. When she answered, I could hear the surprise in her voice. "Brenton, everything okay? I need to ask you something. Why did you really move to Colorado?" The pause that followed told me everything. Madison's voice got quiet. "Mom told you I moved for a job opportunity, didn't she?" "That's what she told everyone," I said. "That's not why I left." Madison took a breath, and I could hear her moving to somewhere more private. "Brenton, I was sending them money too. $500 every month for almost 2 years. Mom said they had medical expenses, that Dad needed medication they couldn't afford." She made it sound desperate. My stomach dropped. "How much total?" "About $11,000 before I stopped." "Why did you stop?" "Because I went home for a weekend to surprise them. I wanted to see how Dad was doing with his health issues." Her voice got bitter. "I found Mom at the Golden Canyon Casino. Brenton. She was at the slot machines at 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. I watched her feed $300 into a machine in about 45 minutes. I closed my eyes. What did she say when you confronted her?" "She said it was her money, and she could spend it however she wanted. Said I was being controlling. We had this huge fight, and she told me if I couldn't trust her, maybe I should just leave. So I did. I found a job in Denver and moved within 6 weeks. And she told everyone you abandoned the family." "Yep. That I was selfish. That I thought I was too good for my hometown. That I'd forgotten where I came from. Uncle Frank didn't speak to me for a year because of what she told him." I filled Madison in on everything. The Thanksgiving blow-up, the mortgage payments, all of it. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Brenton, there's more you need to know. Trevor's been doing this too. Borrowing money from relatives. He got $6,000 from Aunt Carol 2 years ago for his first food truck idea. Never paid her back. He got $4,000 from Grandma Rose for some online retail business. That failed in 3 months. He borrowed $8,000 from Uncle Frank for a pressure washing business. Bought the equipment, used it twice, then sold it for half what he paid. And Mom vouched for him every time? Every single time. She'd call relatives, crying, talking about how Trevor just needed one break, how he was so close to success, how family should support family. She made people feel guilty if they said no. I thought about the $50,000 loan Trevor had wanted me to co-sign. How much of that would have actually gone to a food truck? How much would have disappeared into whatever black hole was consuming my family's money? I'm done, Madison. I canceled the mortgage payment. I told them I'm out. Good, she said firmly. You should have done it 2 years ago. We talked for another hour, comparing notes, realizing how many lies our mother had told to keep her financial house of cards standing. Every story had been carefully crafted. Every manipulation had been precise. She'd kept Madison and me from talking too much, kept us isolated from each other, fed us different versions of events. After I hung up with Madison, I tried to focus on my own life, on fixing things with my girlfriend, Jenna. Jenna and I had been together for 2 years. She was a physical therapist, smart and practical, and completely fed up with me. For the past 6 months, she'd been dropping hints about our future. Marriage, kids, buying a house together. But every time she brought it up, I'd deflected. I'd told her I couldn't afford an engagement ring yet, that we needed to wait, that my finances were tight. I'd never told her about the mortgage payments. I was too ashamed. Ashamed that I was nearly 40 years old and still tied to my parents financially. Ashamed that I couldn't say no to them. Ashamed that I was prioritizing them over my own future. The night after the Thanksgiving disaster, I finally told her everything. We were sitting on her couch, and I laid it all out. The 3 years of payments, the $64,800, the lies my mother had told, the blow-up at dinner. Jenna listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Why didn't you tell me?" she finally asked. I was embarrassed. Embarrassed? "Brenton, I thought you didn't want to marry me. I thought you were stringing me along." Her eyes were wet now. "I've been planning a future while you've been secretly supporting your parents. Do you understand how that feels? You made me feel like I wasn't a priority. You are a priority. They just needed help, and I couldn't say no." "Couldn't? Or wouldn't?" She stood up, putting distance between us. "I need some time to think. About us. About whether I can be with someone who hides something this big for 2 years." She asked me to leave. I drove home feeling like my entire life was collapsing. 3 weeks went by. 3 weeks of silence from my parents. 3 weeks of limited contact with Jenna. 3 weeks of trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I'd learned my lesson about that. "Brenton, it's your father." Dennis's voice sounded strained, panicked even. "Son, we need to talk about the mortgage." The bank called. "You stopped making payments. What's going on?" I felt a surge of anger. What's going on is that Mom told me to get out and never come back. I'm respecting her wishes. You can't just stop paying. We're going to lose the house. That sounds like a problem you and Mom need to solve. Maybe Trevor can help. Maybe his food truck business can save you. "Brenton, please, don't be like this. We can work something out." We had something worked out. I paid your mortgage for 3 years while you told the family I was a freeloader. "We're done, Dad." I hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't have saved but recognized as Trevor's. "Bro, you need to fix this. Mom's having a breakdown. Dad says they're going to lose the house. Stop being petty and help them." I typed back. "I was told to get out and never come back. I'm simply respecting Mom's wishes." Trevor's response came fast. "You're a vindictive coward. You're really going to let them lose their house over one fight? What kind of son are you?" I blocked his number too, but Trevor's message echoed in my head. What kind of son was I? The kind who let his parents lose their house? The kind who walked away when they needed help? Or the kind who finally stopped enabling people who'd been using him for years? I didn't know anymore. 4 weeks after Thanksgiving, I got a notification on my phone. An email from my bank. The subject line read, "Regarding property at 847 Maple Street." That was my parents' address. I opened it with a sinking feeling. It was a formal notice that foreclosure proceedings had begun on the property. The mortgage was 63 days past due. If the outstanding amount of $5,400 wasn't paid within 30 days, the property would be sold at auction. $5,400. 3 months of missed payments. My parents had no income. Dad's pension had run out months before I started helping them, blown through on who knows what. Mom had never worked a full-time job in her life. They'd been living entirely off my payments and whatever was left of their savings, which apparently was nothing. I should have felt vindicated. This was what they'd chosen when they kicked me out. But instead, I felt sick. My parents were 63 and 65 years old. Where would they go if they lost the house? That guilt lasted about 4 hours. That's when my phone started blowing up with notifications. Someone had added me to a family group chat. The name at the top read, "Family Meeting About Dennis and Patricia." Aunt Carol had started it. The messages came rapid fire. Aunt Carol. Everyone needs to see what's happening. Dennis and Patricia are losing their house because Brenton stopped helping them. Uncle Frank. Are you kidding me? After everything they did for you? Cousin Amy. This is so messed up, Brenton. They're your parents. Cousin Jason. How can you sleep at night? I watched the messages pile up. 15 family members in the chat, all of them turning on me. Nobody asked my side. Nobody wondered why I'd stopped paying. They just assumed I was the villain. Finally, I typed a response. Has anyone asked why I was paying their mortgage in the first place? Aunt Carol. Because you lived there rent-free for years. It's the least you could do. And there it was. The lie. Repeated as fact. I took a screenshot of my bank records. 3 years of transfers. Every single one labeled Mom and Dad mortgage. I uploaded it to the chat. I haven't lived with my parents since I was 22. That's 16 years ago. For the past 3 years, I've been paying their mortgage. $1,800 every month. That's $64,800 total. I was paying it while working a full-time job, paying my own rent, and covering my own expenses. I stopped paying because Mom screamed at me to get out and never come back. I'm respecting her wishes. Silence in the chat. For about 2 minutes. Then Uncle Frank. If you were paying all that money, why would she kick you out? I explained about Trevor, about the loan, about the co-signing. I explained how I'd said no, and Mom had exploded. More silence. Then a message from Grandma Rose. Brenton, honey, I didn't know any of this. Patricia told me you'd been staying with them and refusing to contribute. She said you were ungrateful. The chat started splitting. Some relatives apologized. Others stayed silent. A few doubled down, saying it didn't matter, that family helps family no matter what. But the message that made my blood run cold came from Patricia herself. Mom, that money was owed to us. We raised him, fed him, clothed him for 18 years. He lived rent-free as a child. This was repayment. He still owes us more than he's paid. I stared at my phone in disbelief. She actually believed it. She actually thought that raising me, doing the basic job of being a parent, meant I owed her a lifetime of financial support. And some people in the chat agreed with her. Cousin Amy wrote, "She has a point. Parents sacrifice everything." Uncle Frank wrote, "I mean, she's not wrong. You don't charge your kids rent when they're growing up." I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Madison jumped into the chat. I was sending them $500 a month, too, for medical expenses. I found Mom at a casino. That's why I moved to Colorado. And for the record, she told everyone I abandoned them. She's been lying to this family for years. That shifted things. More apologies. More people backing away from Patricia's defense. But the damage was done. The family was fractured, with camps forming. Team Brenton, Team Patricia, and the people who just wanted everyone to shut up about it. That evening, I got a private message from Dennis. "Your mother won't admit she was wrong. She can't. You know how she is. But I'm asking you, man to man, please help us. We'll lose everything. I know we don't deserve it after what she said. But please, I'm begging you." I read the message 5 times. This was my father, the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd come to every one of my Little League games, who'd helped me move into my first apartment. He'd never been a strong man, always letting Mom run the show. But he'd been there. Quietly, in the background. He'd been there. Against my better judgment, against everything Madison had told me. Against the advice of the therapist Jenna had insisted I see. I agreed to meet him. We met at a coffee shop halfway between his house and my apartment. It was a Tuesday morning. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in a month. His hair seemed grayer, his face more lined. He was wearing a flannel shirt that hung loose on him. He'd lost weight. "Thanks for coming," he said when I sat down. We ordered coffee. Neither of us touched it. "Your mother's not doing well," he started. "She's barely eating, barely sleeping. She's convinced you hate her." "I don't hate her, Dad. I'm just done being treated like an ATM. He nodded slowly. I know we messed up. She messed up. The things she said at Thanksgiving, that wasn't right. But you have to understand, she's under a lot of pressure. Trevor's situation, the house, everything." "Trevor's situation?" "Dad, Trevor is 26 years old and unemployed. He's not a situation. He's a grown man who refuses to take responsibility for his life. And Mom enables it. He's trying. This food truck thing, he's really excited about it." I almost laughed. "Dad, Trevor tried a food truck 2 years ago with Aunt Carol's money. It failed in 3 months. Before that, it was online retail. Before that, pressure washing. Before that, 2 other things I can't even remember. He doesn't follow through. He never has." Dennis looked down at his coffee. "I know. But he's my son. What am I supposed to do? Give up on him? I'm your son too." The words hung in the air between us. Dad's eyes got wet. "I know," he whispered. "And I'm sorry. I should have stood up for you at Thanksgiving. I should have told your mother she was wrong. I should have done a lot of things differently." We sat in silence for a moment. "The foreclosure is in 30 days, Dad finally said. "If we don't come up with $5,400, we lose the house. We've been there for 32 years, Brenton. It's our home. All our memories. Where you and Madison and Trevor grew up." "What's your plan?" I asked. "I don't have one. That's why I'm asking you. One more time. Just to stop the foreclosure. Then we'll figure something out. We'll refinance in just our names. You'll never have to pay again. I promise." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. "I need it in writing," I said. "A legal document saying this is the last payment. That I'm released from any obligation. That you acknowledge I've already paid $64,800 and I owe you nothing more." Dad's face lit up. "Yes, absolutely. Whatever you need, I'll sign anything." We drafted something on a napkin right there in the coffee shop. It was crude, not legally binding probably, but it was something. We both signed it. I took a picture of it with my phone. That night, I transferred $5,400 to their bank account. It was the biggest mistake I'd made yet. 2 days after I made the payment, my phone buzzed with a text from Trevor's number. I'd blocked him, but he must have gotten a new phone. "Thanks for the down payment, bro. Mom and Dad are letting me move into the basement permanently. Gonna get my food truck business started from there. Already looking at equipment. Family helps family. Right?" I read the message 3 times, each time feeling my anger build. "Down payment?" I called Dennis immediately. He answered on the first ring, and I could hear the guilt in his voice before he even spoke. "Before you get upset," he started. "What did Trevor mean by down payment?" Silence. "Dad, what did he mean?" Your mother insisted. She said if we were going to accept your help, we had to help Trevor too. "It's only fair," she said. "He's struggling just as much as we are. I gave you that money to stop the foreclosure, not to fund Trevor's latest fantasy. The foreclosure is stopped. We paid the bank. But Trevor needs a place to stay, and your mother said it was non-negotiable. He's moving into the basement rent-free, and we're going to help him get his business started." "With what money?" Another pause. "We took out a credit card. In our names. We figured we could use it to help him buy the initial equipment, and then once his business starts making money, he can pay us back." I was gripping my phone so hard I thought it might crack. "Dad, he's never paid anyone back. Not once. Not Aunt Carol. Not Grandma Rose. Not Uncle Frank. Not Madison. Not you. What makes you think this time will be different? He's older now, more mature. And this idea, the food truck, he's really passionate about it. He was passionate about the other food truck too, and the online retail, and everything else. Your mother believes in him. I have to support that. Even if it destroys you financially, he's our son, Brenton. So am I. The words came out louder than I intended. An older couple at a nearby table looked over. I lowered my voice. I'm your son too, Dad. And I just gave you $5,400 with the promise that it was the last time. You signed a napkin. For God's sake. I know. And I meant it. You won't have to help with the mortgage anymore. But this is different. This is about Trevor. Everything is always about Trevor. I hung up. I sat in my apartment, shaking with rage. $70,200. That's what I'd paid them in total now. Enough money to put a down payment on a house. Enough money to have a real savings account. Enough money to propose to Jenna with a ring she deserved. Jenna. I'd promised her in counseling that I'd discuss any major financial decisions with her before making them. We'd had 3 sessions with the therapist. And that had been one of the key agreements. Communication. Transparency. No more hiding. And I'd just transferred $5,400 without telling her. She found out anyway. She always did. We shared a Netflix account, and she'd logged in on my laptop one day. My bank account was still open in another tab. She called me that evening. Her voice was ice. You paid them again. I can explain. You promised. In therapy, you promised you'd talk to me before making any big financial decisions. $5,400 is a big financial decision, Brenton. My dad asked me to meet him. He looked terrible. They were losing their house. They've been losing their house for 3 years. That's been the excuse every single time. And you keep falling for it. This was supposed to be the last time. He signed something saying I was done after this. Jenna laughed, but there was no humor in it. He signed a napkin. A napkin, Brenton. That's not a legal document. That's not even a real promise. That's just you desperately wanting to believe they'll change. What was I supposed to do? Let them become homeless? Yes, her voice cracked. Yes, you were supposed to let them face the consequences of their choices. They're adults. They've been using you for 3 years, lying about you to your family, and you just gave them more money. I thought I was doing the right thing. The right thing for who? Not for us. Not for our future. You chose them over me. Again. Jenna, please. I can't do this anymore. She was crying now. I can't be with someone who won't choose me. Who won't choose us. I've been waiting for 2 years for you to be ready for marriage. For a future together. And the whole time you've been giving our future away to people who don't even respect you. Don't do this. I'm done. Brenton. We're done. I need someone who's actually ready to build a life with me. And that's not you. She hung up. I tried calling back. She didn't answer. I sent texts. She didn't respond. 3 days later, her brother showed up at my apartment to pick up the stuff she'd kept there. A toothbrush, some clothes, a favorite coffee mug. She's really done this time, her brother said as he was leaving. She waited for you for 2 years. 2 years, man. That's a long time to be someone's second choice. The door closed behind him, and I was alone. $70,200. My parents still had their house. Trevor had a rent-free basement and a credit card to fund his dreams. And I had nothing. No girlfriend, no savings, no relationship with most of my family. Nothing. I called in sick to work the next day. And the day after that. By the 3rd day, my boss called me directly. Brenton, what's going on? This isn't like you. I told him I had some family issues. That I needed a few days to sort things out. Take the time you need, he said. But we need you back next week. We've got a major project launching, and you're the lead developer. I can't cover for you longer than that. I promised I'd be back. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I meant it. I spent a week in my apartment, barely eating, barely sleeping. The walls felt like they were closing in. I'd taken my personal days and 2 sick days, and I was supposed to return to work on Monday. It was Friday night, and I couldn't imagine how I'd function. Madison called me every day. On Friday, she didn't ask if she could come. She just told me she'd booked a flight and would arrive Saturday morning. When I picked her up from the airport, she took one look at me and hugged me without saying a word. I couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged me like that, like they actually cared whether I was okay. We went to a diner near my apartment. Madison ordered us both coffee and breakfast, even though it was 1 in the afternoon. "You look terrible," she said. "I feel terrible. Jenna," she left me. "For good this time." Madison nodded. "Did you tell her about the $5,400? She found out on her own. I broke my promise to discuss it with her first." "So you gave them more money, lost your girlfriend, and they're still using you." "Trevor's moving into their basement. They took out a credit card to fund his food truck." Madison closed her eyes. "Of course they did. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like I'm drowning." "Then stop swimming toward them. Let them save themselves." "They can't save themselves. They have no income, no savings, no plan." "That's not your problem, Breton. That stopped being your problem the second Mom screamed at you to get out." We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Madison pulled out her phone. "I need to show you something. I've been saving these for 2 years just in case." She showed me screenshots, text messages between her and our mother. Messages where Mom asked for money for Dad's heart medication, while Madison had proof from a cousin who worked at the pharmacy that Dad wasn't on any heart medication. Messages where Mom promised to pay her back as soon as Dad's disability check comes in when Dad had never applied for disability. Message after message of lies, manipulation, and broken promises. "I documented everything," Madison said. "Every lie, every request, every broken promise. I knew someday I might need proof." "Why didn't you show me this before?" "Because you weren't ready to see it. You wanted to believe they'd change, that they'd appreciate your help, that they'd eventually do the right thing." She reached across the table and took my hand. "But they won't, Brenton. People like Mom don't change. They just find new ways to manipulate." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything Madison had said, about 2 years of lies, about patterns of manipulation, about how I'd been conditioned my entire life to be the family fixer. Sunday morning, my phone buzzed with notifications. Facebook notifications. I rarely used Facebook, but something made me open the app. My mother had posted, "Heartbroken tonight. Nothing hurts more than ungrateful children who abandon their elderly parents in their time of need. We gave them everything, and this is how we're repaid. Praying for strength to get through this difficult time." The post had 63 likes, 47 comments, most of them from people I didn't know, offering sympathy and support. A few from relatives I did know. Aunt Carol. "Stay strong, Patricia. The truth always comes out." Cousin Amy. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. You deserve better." Uncle Frank. "Family should stick together. Shame on anyone who forgets that." No names mentioned, but everyone who mattered knew who she was talking about. Me. I scrolled through her previous posts. They went back weeks. Vague posts about betrayal, about disappointment, about children who forget where they came from. Each one carefully worded to make her the victim, me the villain. Each one collecting sympathy and support from people who had no idea what was really happening. My reputation was being destroyed, one Facebook post at a time. Madison looked over my shoulder. "She's good at this. She's been playing the victim our whole lives. Now she's just doing it publicly. What do I do?" "You fight back. With the truth." But before I could decide whether to respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Brenton Cooper?" A woman's voice, professional. "Yes? This is Sandra Chen from Morrison & Associates law firm. I'm calling on behalf of my clients, Patricia and Dennis Cooper. You've been named in a civil lawsuit. You should receive official notification by certified mail within 3 business days." My stomach dropped. "A lawsuit? For what?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss the details over the phone. The complaint will outline everything. I'm simply giving you a courtesy call to let you know it's coming. You'll want to retain counsel. Good day." She hung up. I stared at my phone. Madison was watching me, her face pale. "They're suing me," I said. "For what?" She wouldn't say. The certified letter arrived on Wednesday. I signed for it with shaking hands. Madison was still staying with me. She'd extended her trip, called her boss, taken family leave. She wasn't leaving me alone right now, she'd said. We opened the letter together. It was 12 pages long. Legal language I could barely understand, but the core of it was clear enough. My parents were suing me for financial elder abuse and breach of verbal contract. They claimed I'd promised to support them indefinitely, that my sudden withdrawal of support constituted willful abandonment, that they'd relied on my payments to their detriment, and my cessation had caused them severe emotional and financial distress. They were seeking $100,000 in damages, plus emotional distress compensation. I read it twice, certain I was misunderstanding. But no. My parents, whom I'd paid $70,200 to support, were suing me for stopping. This is insane, Madison said. They can't possibly win this. But I wasn't so sure. I called a lawyer that afternoon. His name was Arthur White, and he'd been recommended by a friend from work. His initial consultation was $250. I paid it. Arthur read through the complaint while I sat in his office, feeling like I might throw up. Okay, he finally said. Let's talk about this. Can they actually sue me for this? They can sue you for anything. The question is whether they'll win. And that's where things get complicated. He pulled out the napkin photo I'd sent him. This document you signed at the coffee shop. You acknowledge here that you've been paying their mortgage. That's going to be used against you. But it says that payment was the last one. That I'm released from obligation. Written on a napkin. Not notarized. No witnesses. Any judge is going to look at this and see a desperate attempt at a contract, not an actual contract. He leaned back in his chair. Here's the problem. You've established a pattern of financial support. 3 years of consistent payments. From a legal standpoint, they can argue you created a reliance, that they structured their lives around your support, and your sudden withdrawal could be seen as abandonment. They told me to get out and never come back. Do you have that in writing? A recording? Any proof beyond your word against theirs? I thought about it. The Thanksgiving dinner. Dozens of witnesses. But would any of them testify for me? There were people there. Family members. Would they testify? I don't know. Maybe some of them. Arthur made some notes. The lawsuit is weak. I don't think they'll win. But here's the reality. Defending against this is going to cost you money. Legal fees. My retainer alone is $5,000. If this goes to trial, you're looking at $15,000 to $20,000 in costs. Even if you win, I felt the room spin. I don't have that kind of money. Then you might consider settling, offering them a lump sum to go away. Settling? Paying them more money after everything they've done? It's often the most practical solution. Cheaper than fighting it in court. Less stressful. Faster resolution. I left his office feeling worse than when I'd arrived. Madison was waiting in the parking lot. What did he say? He said fighting this will cost me at least $15,000. More if it goes to trial. He suggested settling. You can't give them more money, Brenton. That's exactly what they want. They're counting on you being too tired, too broke, too beaten down to fight back. But I am too tired, too broke, too beaten down. Look at me, Madison. I've lost my girlfriend. My savings are gone. I'm barely holding on to my job. And now this. We got back to my apartment. There was a message on my phone from my manager. Could I please call him when I got a chance? It was important. I called. He was polite but firm. My performance had been slipping for months. I'd missed deadlines, made errors in my code, taken excessive time off. They were putting me on a performance improvement plan. 60 days to show significant improvement, or I'd be let go. I was on the verge of losing my job. That night, I sat on my couch with Madison, staring at my bank account on my laptop. After rent, after car payment, after utilities, after the lawyer's retainer, I had $863 left. That had to last me until my next paycheck in 2 weeks. I was 38 years old. I had a master's degree in computer science. I'd worked hard my entire adult life, and I had $863 to my name. I should just give up, I said. Apologize to Mom and Dad. Pay what they want. Go back to how things were. Madison grabbed my laptop and closed it. Look at me. I looked at her. That's exactly what they want. They want you broken down enough that you come crawling back. They want you to believe you have no choice. But you do have a choice. You can fight back. I'm tired of fighting. I know. But if you give up now, this never ends. You'll be paying them for the rest of your life. Every time they need money, they'll threaten you. They'll sue you. They'll manipulate you. Trevor will be in that basement until he's 50, and they'll expect you to fund it all. Is that the life you want? I thought about it. Thought about the next 40 years. Thought about always being the family ATM. About never having my own life, my own money, my own choices. No, I finally said. That's not the life I want. Then we fight. Together. I've got your back this time. You're not alone. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt angry, and anger, I was about to discover, was a much more useful emotion than guilt. Madison stayed for another week. In that time, we built a case. She showed me how she'd documented everything with our parents. Text messages, emails, bank statements. She'd been keeping records for 2 years, knowing that one day she might need proof. You need to do the same, she said. Document everything. Every payment you made. Every lie they told. Every witness to what happened. I started with my bank records. 3 years of transfers to their account. Every single one labeled Mom and Dad mortgage. I created a spreadsheet showing dates, amounts, and totals. $64,800 in mortgage payments. $5,400 in the final payment. $70,200 total. Then I went through my emails. Found the original messages from 3 years ago when they'd first asked for help. Dad's email had been desperate. Son, we're losing the house. We have 60 days before foreclosure. We've never asked you for help like this, but we don't know what else to do. Mom's follow-up email was worse. We raised you. We put you through college. We were there for you when you needed us. Now we need you. Please don't abandon us. I'd responded the same day. I'll help. Let me set up an automatic transfer. How much do you need per month? Their response. $1,800. Just until we get back on our feet. We'll pay you back. We promise. 3 years later, they'd never even tried to pay me back. Never looked for jobs. Never made any attempt to get back on their feet. Next, I documented the Thanksgiving dinner incident. I couldn't record it after the fact, but I could write down everything I remembered. What Mom had said. How Dad had stayed silent. Trevor's request for the $50,000 loan. My polite refusal. Mom's explosion. The exact words. You're ungrateful. Get out and never come back. I reached out to relatives who'd been there. Aunt Carol, surprisingly, agreed to write a statement about what she'd witnessed. She'd turned on Mom after learning about the lies, and she was willing to testify if needed. My cousin Jason, who'd originally condemned me in the group chat, apologized and offered to help. He'd seen the evidence, realized he'd been manipulated, and now wanted to make it right. Even Grandma Rose, 81 years old and fierce, called me. Your mother's been lying to all of us for years. I'm ashamed I believed her. I'll help however I can. Madison and I compiled everything into a binder. 217 pages of evidence. Bank statements, emails, text messages, screenshots of Mom's Facebook posts, written statements from family members, the napkin contract Dad and I had signed. Everything. I took it all to Arthur White. He flipped through it, his eyebrows rising higher with each page. This is good, he finally said. This is really good. With this, we can file a countersuit. For what? Fraud, financial manipulation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We can argue that your parents lied to obtain money from you under false pretenses, that they never intended to repay you, that they deliberately isolated you from family members by spreading false information about you. We can demand return of the money you paid them. Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in weeks. Would we win? I think we'd have a strong case. And more importantly, I think once they see this evidence, they'll drop their lawsuit. They're counting on you being too broken down to fight back. Let's show them they're wrong. We filed the countersuit 3 days later. It was 38 pages long. Every payment documented. Every lie cataloged. Every manipulation exposed. We sued for return of the $70,200, plus legal fees. plus damages for emotional distress. I also did something Madison suggested. I wrote a detailed post in the family group chat. Not angry, not defensive, just factual. I've been asked by many of you why I stopped paying my parents' mortgage. Here's the complete truth, with documentation. I laid it all out. The 3 years of payments, the total amount, the lies Mom had told about me living with them rent-free, the Thanksgiving incident, the lawsuit they'd filed, Madison's similar experience, Trevor's pattern of borrowing and never repaying. I ended with, I'm done being the family ATM. I'm done enabling behavior that hurts everyone. I'm done protecting people who won't protect themselves. Mom and Dad can support themselves, or they can support Trevor. They can't do both on my money anymore. I've filed a countersuit. This will be decided in court. I won't be discussing it further in this chat. Then I muted the chat notifications. Madison read it over my shoulder. Good. Clear. Factual. Unemotional. Perfect. The family response was split again, but this time more people were on my side. Aunt Carol shared her own statement about what she'd witnessed at Thanksgiving. Grandma Rose posted a message saying she supported my decision and was disappointed in Patricia's behavior. Uncle Frank, who'd been one of Mom's biggest defenders, went quiet. Arthur called me 2 days later. I just got off the phone with your parents' attorney. They want to settle. My heart pounded. Settle how? They'll drop their lawsuit if you drop yours. Clean break. No money exchanged either way. You walk away. They walk away. So I lose $70,000 and they face no consequences? You avoid $15,000 in legal fees and months of court proceedings. And you're free. Completely free of any obligation to them. I thought about it. $70,200. 3 years of my life. My relationship with Jenna. All of it gone, with nothing to show for it. But I'd also be free. No more lawsuits. No more manipulation. No more guilt. I want one more thing, I said. I want a legally binding document stating they release me from all financial obligations. That they acknowledge they have no claim to any future support from me. And I want them to agree never to contact me again unless I initiate it. I can request that. And I want them to sign a statement acknowledging the truth. That I paid their mortgage for 3 years. That I don't owe them anything. Something I can show to family members if they start lying again. Arthur was quiet for a moment. That's going to be harder. They're not going to want to admit fault. Then no deal. We go to court. I was done negotiating. Done compromising. Done protecting them from consequences. Arthur called back the next day. They agreed. To all of it. They want this over as much as you do. We scheduled the settlement signing for the following Friday. Madison flew back again to be there with me. We met at Arthur's office. Mom and Dad were in a different conference room with their lawyer. The documents were signed separately. I never saw them. Didn't want to. Arthur handed me my copies. 3 documents. The dismissal of both lawsuits. The release of all financial obligations. And the statement. I read the statement carefully. It was brief, clinical, but it was true. Patricia and Dennis Cooper acknowledged that Brenton Cooper paid their mortgage in the amount of $1,800 per month for 36 months, totaling $64,800. Patricia and Dennis Cooper acknowledged that Brenton Cooper paid an additional $5,400 to prevent foreclosure. Patricia and Dennis Cooper acknowledged that Brenton Cooper has no further financial obligation to them. Patricia and Dennis Cooper agree to refrain from requesting financial assistance from Brenton Cooper in the future. Both their signatures were at the bottom. Notarized. It's done, Arthur said. You're free. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in 3 years. The $70,000 was gone. I'd never see it again. But I also never had to send another payment. Never had to answer another guilt-ridden phone call. Never had to wonder if I'd done enough. I was free. Madison hugged me in the parking lot. I'm proud of you. That took real strength. I should have done it 3 years ago. You did it when you were ready. That's what matters. That night, I did something I'd been afraid to do for weeks. I called Jenna. She answered on the 3rd ring. Brenton. Hi. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need to tell you something. The lawsuit is settled. I'm done with my parents. Completely done. No more payments. No more enabling. No more choosing them over my own life. Silence on the other end. I should have done this years ago. I should have listened to you. I should have put us first. I'm sorry it took me losing you to figure that out. I'm glad you stood up for yourself, she finally said. Really. You deserve better than how they treated you. I deserved better than how I treated you too. More silence. I'm not ready, she said softly. I'm not ready to jump back into us. You hurt me, Brenton. Multiple times. And I need to protect myself. I understand. But would you be willing to talk? Maybe coffee sometime? Just to talk? Maybe. Not yet. But maybe someday. That's all I can ask for. We said goodbye. It wasn't the reconciliation I'd hoped for. But it wasn't a complete rejection either. It was a maybe. And maybe was better than the nothing I'd had before. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks after the settlement. I'd almost forgotten about it in the chaos of everything else. Mom had filed it claiming I was harassing her, that I'd made threats, that she was afraid for her safety. It was one more manipulation, one more attempt to control the narrative. But this time, I was ready. Arthur and I walked into the courthouse on a Tuesday morning. Madison had flown in again. She wasn't missing this. Mom and Dad were already there with their lawyer, a thin man in his 50s named Robert something. I didn't catch his last name. Trevor was there too, sitting behind them, wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt. He glared at me as we walked in. The judge was a woman in her early 60s, Judge Martha Reynolds. She looked tired, like she'd seen too many family disputes and believed none of them. Case number 72945, the clerk called. Patricia Cooper versus Brenton Cooper. Restraining order hearing. Judge Reynolds looked at the file. Miss Cooper, you're requesting a permanent restraining order against your son? Patricia stood. She'd dressed carefully for this. Conservative dress, minimal makeup, gray hair pulled back. She looked like someone's sweet grandmother, not someone who'd been manipulating her family for years. Yes, Your Honor. My son has been harassing me and his father, making threats. We're afraid of what he might do. What specific threats has he made? Patricia hesitated. He said he'd make sure we lost everything, that he'd ruin us. He's been very aggressive. Judge Reynolds looked at me. Mr. Cooper, did you make those statements? I stood. No, Your Honor. I've had minimal contact with my parents since Thanksgiving. The only messages I've sent were about stopping financial support that I'd been providing for 3 years. Financial support? Arthur stood up. Your Honor, if I may, we have extensive documentation that provides context for this situation. Judge Reynolds nodded. Proceed. Arthur opened the binder. For 3 years, Mr. Cooper paid his parents' mortgage, $1,800 per month. During that time, his mother told extended family members that Mr. Cooper was living in their home rent-free and refusing to contribute. This was false. Mr. Cooper has maintained his own residence for 16 years. He handed copies of the bank statements to the judge. Here are 3 years of transfers, totaling $64,800. Mr. Cooper stopped these payments after his mother told him, in front of numerous family members at Thanksgiving dinner, to get out and never come back. He was respecting her wishes. Judge Reynolds studied the documents. Miss Cooper, is this accurate? Did your son pay your mortgage for 3 years? Patricia's lawyer whispered something to her. She nodded reluctantly. Yes, but that was money he owed us. For raising him. For putting him through college. Your Honor, Arthur interjected, Mr. Cooper put himself through college with student loans. His parents did not pay for his education. Furthermore, parental obligation to raise a child does not create a legal debt that the child owes in adulthood. Judge Reynolds looked at Patricia over her reading glasses. Miss Cooper, did you tell your son to leave and never come back? I was upset. Family argument. It didn't mean anything. It meant something to me, I said. Judge Reynolds looked at me, and I continued. Your Honor, for 3 years I paid their mortgage while working full-time, paying my own rent, and managing my own student loans. I did it because they asked for help, because they said they'd pay me back, because they're my parents. But they never paid back a cent, never looked for work, never tried to become self-sufficient. And when I couldn't co-sign a loan for my brother's business, my mother publicly humiliated me and told me to get out of their lives. So I did. I stopped the payments and tried to move on with my life. And the threats? Judge Reynolds asked. I never threatened them, Your Honor. I said I was done financially supporting them. That's not a threat. That's a boundary, Arthur added. In fact, Your Honor, Miss and Mr. Cooper filed a lawsuit against Mr. Cooper, claiming financial elder abuse for stopping these payments. That case was settled last month, with both parties dropping their suits. As part of the settlement, Miss and Mr. Cooper signed a document acknowledging the payments and releasing Mr. Cooper from any future obligation. He handed the settlement documents to the judge. Judge Reynolds read through everything silently. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear Trevor shifting in his seat behind our parents. Finally, the judge looked up. Miss Cooper, it appears to me that your son supported you financially for 3 years and stopped when you told him to leave your life. I see no evidence of harassment or threats. What I do see is a young man who set a reasonable boundary after years of being taken advantage of. Patricia's face went red. He's trying to ruin us. We're going to lose our house because of him. You're going to lose your house because you have no income and no plan to obtain income, Judge Reynolds said sharply. That is not your son's responsibility. He's 38 years old with his own life to live. She turned to me. Mr. Cooper, have you had any contact with your parents since the settlement? No, Your Honor. None. Do you intend to contact them in the future? Not unless they need something genuinely urgent and I choose to respond. I have no desire for contact, but I'm not going to completely cut them off in case of a real emergency. Judge Reynolds made some notes. The restraining order is denied. I see no credible evidence of harassment or threats. Furthermore, I'm concerned about the pattern of financial manipulation I'm seeing in these documents. Miss and Mr. Cooper, I strongly suggest you seek legitimate employment or apply for appropriate social services. Your son is not your retirement plan. She banged her gavel. Case dismissed. Patricia's lawyer tried to say something, but the judge was already moving on to the next case. We were done. As we walked out of the courtroom, Trevor caught up with us in the hallway. You're really going to do this? Let them lose their house? I turned to face him. Trevor, you're 26 years old. You're unemployed. You've borrowed money from half our family and paid back exactly none of it. You've failed at 5 different businesses, and you're living rent-free in their basement while they're facing foreclosure. Maybe you should get a job and help them yourself instead of expecting me to do it. I'm starting a business. You're always starting a business. You never finish one. You know what would actually help them? You getting a regular job. Any job. Contributing rent. Being an adult. His face twisted with anger. You think you're better than me because you have some corporate job. No, Trevor. I think I'm an adult because I pay my own bills. There's a difference. Madison pulled me away before the conversation could escalate. We left Trevor standing in the courthouse hallway, fuming. Outside, Madison hugged me. That felt good, didn't it? Yeah, I admitted. It really did. Over the next few months, things slowly improved. I focused on my job and managed to get off the performance improvement plan. My savings account started growing again. Small amounts, but growing. For the first time in 3 years, I could see a future that included financial security. The extended family dynamic shifted too. Grandma Rose invited Madison and me to Sunday dinner at her house. Just the 3 of us. No Patricia, no Dennis, no drama. Just family who actually cared about each other. Aunt Carol apologized for believing Mom's lies. I should have known better. Patricia's always been manipulative, even when we were kids. I just didn't want to believe she'd lie about her own children. Uncle Frank paid Madison back the money Trevor had borrowed from him. I can't get back the money I gave your parents, he said, but I can make this right. Even some cousins reached out, apologizing for piling on in the group chat. They'd seen the evidence, understood what really happened, and felt guilty for condemning me without knowing the full story. As for my parents, I heard updates through the family grapevine. They'd managed to avoid foreclosure by selling the house and downsizing to a small apartment. Trevor had moved out, though not to start his food truck business. He'd moved in with a girlfriend who apparently had a job and didn't mind supporting him. Patricia and Dennis both got part-time jobs. Dad at a hardware store, Mom at a grocery store. They were making ends meet, barely, but they were surviving. Without my money. Without manipulating their children. Just two people finally facing the consequences of their choices. I never contacted them. They never contacted me. The settlement agreement held. 6 months after the courthouse hearing, Jenna agreed to meet me for coffee. We met at the same place where Dad and I had drafted that napkin contract, though I didn't tell her that. She looked good. Happy. She'd cut her hair shorter, and she was wearing a dress I didn't recognize. "Thanks for meeting me," I said. "Thanks for being patient." We talked for 2 hours. I told her about therapy, about the work I'd been doing to understand my family patterns, about the boundaries I'd set. She told me about her own growth, about focusing on herself, about learning to trust her instincts. "I'm not the same person I was," I said. "I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm not going to light myself on fire to keep other people warm anymore." She smiled. "That's good. You deserve better than that." "So do you." We started seeing each other again. Slowly. Coffee dates became dinner dates. Dinner dates became weekends together. We took it slow, rebuilding trust, learning to communicate better. The counseling helped. We both went, separately and together. 8 months after that first coffee date, I proposed. The ring wasn't huge, but it was what we could afford together. We'd saved for it as a team, making joint decisions, being honest about our finances. It was a real partnership this time. She said yes. The wedding was small. Madison was my best person. Jenna's brother walked her down the aisle. Grandma Rose cried happy tears. Aunt Carol and Uncle Frank came. Some cousins, people who actually cared about us, who supported our relationship, who wanted us to succeed. Patricia and Dennis were not invited. I felt no guilt about that. None. They'd had 3 years to be supportive parents. They'd chosen manipulation instead. Now they weren't part of my life, and that was okay. More than okay. It was healthy. At the reception, Madison gave a toast. To my brother Brenton and his beautiful bride, Jenna. Brenton taught me something important this year. He taught me that walking away from toxicity isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself. It's deciding that your own peace matters more than someone else's comfort. It's understanding that you can love your family without accepting abuse. I'm proud of him for being brave enough to set boundaries. And I'm grateful to Jenna for loving him through the hard parts. To Brenton and Jenna, everyone raised their glasses. To Brenton and Jenna, that night, dancing with my new wife, I thought about everything I'd learned, about how love and obligation aren't the same thing, about how helping and enabling are different, about how sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face their own consequences. I'd spent years confusing guilt with responsibility, years thinking that being a good son meant sacrificing my own future, years believing that family meant never saying no, never setting boundaries, never choosing myself. But I'd learned. Real family respects your limits. Real love doesn't demand you destroy yourself to prove it. Real relationships are built on mutual respect, not manipulation and guilt. I looked at Jenna, beautiful in her wedding dress, smiling at something Madison was saying. This was my family now. People who chose to be here. People who supported me without demanding I sacrifice everything. People who loved me for who I was, not for what I could give them. I thought about that Thanksgiving dinner, about Mom screaming at me to get out, about walking away with my keys in my hand, not knowing if I was making the right choice. It had been the right choice. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is permission to stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. Sometimes love means letting go. And sometimes, just sometimes, you have to lose everything to find out what really matters. A week after the wedding, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. It was from Dennis. He must have gotten a new phone, or was borrowing someone else's. "Son, your mother wants to apologize. Things have been hard. We've had time to think about everything. Can we talk?" I looked at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to believe it, wanted to believe they'd changed, that they'd finally seen the truth, that we could have some kind of relationship. But I'd learned to recognize manipulation, even when it wore the mask of reconciliation. I showed the text to Jenna. She read it and looked up at me. What are you going to do? I'm going to delete it. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm just done. They had 3 years in a courthouse hearing to apologize. They chose lawsuits and manipulation instead. I don't need their apology now. I don't need anything from them. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Jenna kissed me. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too. I turned back to my life. To my wife, my job, my apartment that I could actually afford now. To my savings account that was slowly growing. To plans for the future that didn't include supporting anyone but ourselves. I was 38 years old, newly married, finally free from the weight of obligation that had crushed me for years. And I'd never been happier. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where family expected you to sacrifice your own future for theirs? Where love felt more like obligation than choice? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who's struggling with similar issues. Remember, you're not responsible for fixing everyone else's problems. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to be free. Take care of yourselves. And remember, the family you choose can be just as important as the family you're born into. Sometimes more important. Until next time.